Let me get to my Alaskan of the week, because this is a great story, and it's very inspiring. And I want all the pages and everybody in America, and certainly back home in Alaska, to hear about Angela Harris. Now, I always do a little update on what's going on back home. I was back home last weekend. Summer's in full swing. The fish are running. Boy, oh boy, the Kenai River is having a world record sockeye salmon run. I got to do a little fishing last week on the Kenai. It's incredible. If you love fishing, America, come on up. There's no better fishing in the whole world. By the way, the Kenai River is just spectacular. This unreal glacial blue river. It's just amazing. It's majestic. It's indescribable. The midnight sun is out in Utqiagvik, Barrow, our northernmost community. The sun still won't set for another few weeks. So it's been up for weeks. No sunset. Just a great community there. The summers in Alaska just have so much energy. It's everywhere. It's in our waters. It's in our salmon, streams, and rivers. It's tourists. We got a lot of tourists, millions. And we got our great Coast Guard, America's Coast Guard, always on duty, ready to respond, ready to protect. So, Mr. President, the Coast Guard, we're coming up on the 235th birthday of the Coast Guard. Our great men and women of the Coast Guard for over 2 centuries have been always ready, semper paratus, to defend our nation, guard our waters, respond to disasters. By the way, we got some heroic Coast Guard members doing great work recently in those horrible floods down in Texas. I had the opportunity to meet them. And in Alaska, Mr. President, with more coastline than the rest of the country combined, that's right, 33,000 miles of rugged coastline in Alaska. That's more than the rest of the country combined. The Coast Guard is on duty all the time. In 2024 alone, they responded to almost 1,000 calls and saved over 200 lives, just in my state alone. I mean, you want to talk about heroic members of our military. And of course, that's not all they do. Alaska's Coast Guard is uniquely positioned on the front lines of national security. I like to talk about it a lot in the Armed Services Committee, but we are seeing an unprecedented push by the Russians and Chinese into Alaska's airspace and Alaska's waters. We just had a Russian Bear bomber, a couple strategic bombers in our ADIZ, our Alaska Air Identification Zone, just last week. Our military had to go. Fighters go up and intercept them. But our Coast Guard helps monitor these kind of incursions and keeps our northern maritime border secure. They do this all across our state in communities like Kodiak, Sitka, Valdez, Juneau. They are our friends. Coast Guard members are our neighbors, our mentors, our volunteers. They are really integrated into the Alaskan communities where they serve. And we owe them, Mr. President, a huge debt of gratitude. So, with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, one element that is really not getting a lot of coverage, which is so great, is that that bill secured the biggest investment in the U.S. Coast Guard in U.S. history. That's not an exaggeration. That is what happened. Over $25 billion for our Coast Guard, and they need it. I love our military, all services. The Coast Guard is often the redheaded stepchild in terms of getting up-to-date equipment and gear, and cutters and hangars. This is a home run for the Coast Guard in terms of capital investments. 17 new icebreakers. Right now we have 2 icebreakers and one is broken. Russia has 54. Okay, we are way behind. 40 new helicopters, 22 cutters. I mean, this is a generational investment for the Coast Guard. And as the chairman of the Commerce Subcommittee overseeing the Coast Guard, this was a top priority of mine. I work closely with our Commerce Committee Chair, Senator Cruz, on making this happen. Giant investment, huge home run for our Coast Guard in the communities that support them, like Juneau, Alaska. Mr. President, on August 10th, I'm going to be hosting the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Commandant of the Coast Guard. We're going to be in Juneau to commission the U.S. Coast Guard vessel, the Storis, an icebreaker, to be home-ported finally in Alaska. We've been trying to get an icebreaker home-ported in Alaska forever. You'd think the Coast Guard would want to put an icebreaker where the ice is. Well, they're finally going to do it, and that's going to be great. It's going to be a great August. I'm hosting several of President Trump's cabinet, Secretary Duffy, Secretary Turner, Secretary Kennedy, Secretary of Homeland Security, Noam. It's going to be a busy time up in Alaska. So we love our Coast Guard, and we are finally making the proper investment. So why am I talking so much about the Coast Guard? Because our Alaskan of the Week, Angela Harris, is a coastie. And boy, oh boy, is she a fierce competitor of a Coast Guard member. Let me just give a little bit of a quick bio of her. A mother, a fierce competitor in archery, cycling, indoor rowing, powerlifting, track, and rugby. And Mr. President, unfortunately, but in some ways, you know, it showed her grit, a survivor of a random attack that left her paralyzed in a wheelchair. This incredible woman, Angela Harris, is our Alaskan of the Week today. So let's talk a little bit about Angela. Yeoman First Class Angela Harris joined the U.S. Coast Guard in the summer of 1998 after feeling a call to serve her country and see the world. The ocean's always been where I feel most at peace, Angela said. It's where my soul feels recharged. Angela and her family relocated when she was in the Coast Guard to Alaska on Christmas Day in 2005 after joining the Coast Guard's Arctic Planning and Operations Team, which they do a great job. By the way, the Coast Guard in Alaska has now been renamed the Arctic sector for the Coast Guard. She fell in love with Alaska immediately, especially as she felt her work was making a real impact on these Arctic missions in rural communities where our Coast Guard plays such an important role. She said, quote, "Seeing firsthand how critical the Coast Guard is to rural Alaska deepened my commitment to this mission of the Coast Guard and inspired me to continue supporting Coast Guard Arctic operations wherever possible." For more than a decade, Angela worked in the Arctic operations of the Coast Guard, first stationed in Juneau and then in Anchorage, and was on active duty orders when, unfortunately, her life suddenly was upended in February of 2022. So what happened during that unfortunate time? She was returning books to the Anchorage Library when she was attacked in a random assault by a mentally ill man that unfortunately left her with a severe spinal cord injury. She spent more than a month in the hospital and even longer in physical therapy, adjusting to this difficult life in a wheelchair. Angela said that she felt like everything was a fight. She pushed herself mentally and physically to heal from the attack while spending hours on the phone, unfortunately, with her insurance company. And to make matters worse, the charges against her attacker were dropped after he was found to be incompetent to stand trial, even after it came out that this man had attacked other women before. So this is a giant change, a very difficult change in the life of Angela, and let's face it, other people would have just given up. She didn't give up at all. She was on a mission, Mr. President. First, she decided to make sure that this kind of injustice wouldn't happen again. Angela reached out to Alaska lawmakers to share her story and push for change, to make sure attackers couldn't just get away with hurting people, even if they were, quote, incompetent to stand trial. So after more of a year of work and advocacy, she got our Alaska legislature to pass a bill ensuring that dangerous individuals who are incompetent to stand trial will be held and evaluated for involuntary commitment. That's right. Great job, Angela. Victims of crime in Alaska now have the right to attend the involuntary commitment hearings for those who attack them. Makes sense. She got it done. And they have the right to know the status of those involuntary commitment proceedings. This guy should have been put away and not attacking more women in Alaska. Angela said, quote, advocacy requires more than just passion. It demands endurance, community, and the courage to admit when the weight is too heavy to carry alone. That's when others come and help you. Amidst the battle to pass her legislation and recover physically, Angela discovered another passion which she excelled at: competitive sports. Nearly 2 years after her attack, in 2024, she attended her first adaptive sports training camp in California. And here, Angela's life turned. Think about this. She's now in a wheelchair. One sport stood out: wheelchair rugby. She said, quote, wheelchair rugby lights a fire in me like nothing else. It's absolutely electric. It was wheelchair rugby's team element that really drew her to the sport. She said, what has truly moved the needle in my healing has been the community I've found within adaptive sports. This community has helped me build and rebuild parts of me I wasn't sure could ever be whole again. Now, Mr. President, it wasn't just wheelchair rugby. Angela excelled in every sport that she has focused on, in so many other sports. It's incredible, to be honest. Let me go through the list. In the 2024 Department of Defense Warrior Games, she brought home gold medals in both the 4-minute and 1-minute indoor rowing events. In the 2025 Invictus Games, she brought home a gold medal in the 50-meter backstroke and in bronze downhill skiing. Skiing, rugby, rowing. Her greatest achievement at these games wasn't the medals, however. It was being honored by her teammates as one of 2 on the team chosen to carry the United States flag at the opening ceremonies. It's great. What a patriot. What a patriot. So let me conclude, Mr. President. Angela's still doing so much, and my goodness, her family's contributing to our country in a way that's really remarkable. This February, Angela retired from the Coast Guard as an honorary Chief Petty Officer. But her legacy in the U.S. military, particularly the sea services, continues. Her oldest daughter, Kiana, is a hospital corpsman second class in the Navy and was honored as Alaska's Armed Services YMCA Reservist of the Year in 2023. Middle daughter, Ariana, has served in the U.S. Navy since 2022. And her youngest daughter, Liliana, just graduated from basic training in the Coast Guard and is now being trained as a hospital corpsman at the A School. 3 daughters, 3 service members, U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard, just like their heroic mom. All 3 daughters are now following in their mom's footsteps. No wonder their mom has got to be one of the best role models any young woman could hope for. Our military serves as a reminder of our strength as a country. And Mr. President, no one personifies that better than Angela Harris. Angela, your courage and strength, your incredible athleticism, your advocacy on victims' issues, all of this is unparalleled. Thank you for everything you've done for protecting Alaskans, our coasts, future potential victims of crime, taking care of those great daughters, protecting our people, and most of all, congratulations on being our Alaskan of the Week. I yield the floor.